And after that, bishop to e6 by Arjun. Basically, he wants to exchange the queens so that he can capture this knight. So that's why here Gukesh decides to exchange the queen first. And now it's better for black to go for knight to d5, centralizing this knight so that he can cover more squares. But instead, here Arjun goes for and as you can see, now white is threatening to capture this pawn on d7. So that's why. Okay, so now as you can see, white is asking for rook exchange, and guys, here the best move for black is to place this bishop to d4, attacking this pawn. And let's suppose if rook takes e7, bishop takes b6, and at the end you can see black have these two powerful bishop, which makes this position slightly better for black if white even makes a single inaccuracy. But in the actual game, after the move rook takes a7, here black goes for rook at a goes to b8, which is a huge mistake because now Gukesh immediately brings his bishop to f4, attacking this rook. And now white can guard this b6 pawn by bishop to e3, but instead Gukesh goes for bishop to g5, attacking this rook. And here black cannot go for f6 because as you can see, this move weakens the security of black king, and it's a serious issue since this rook is already covering this 7th rank. First, white will bring his bishop back to e3, and in the next move there are multiple ways for white, like knight to c3. He can simply develop this knight, or maybe rook to c7, targeting this undefended c6 pawn. And by this you can see this position is better for white. So that's why after seeing this, after bishop to g5, here Arjun goes for and now rook to c1 by Gukesh, stopping this c pawn from pushing further. But guys, in this position black can however go for c5, allowing white to capture this c5 pawn by, let's suppose if bishop takes c5, bishop takes c5. And if rook takes c5, attacking this bishop, but guys, black can simply defend this by rook to d8. And as you can see, now black is threatening to capture this pawn on b6, but here white cannot do anything to save this. I mean, let's suppose if white tries to defend this by rook to a6, uh, he tries to defend this pawn, but guys, that will be a huge blunder because of this amazing move bishop to b7, attacking this rook as well as this undefended knight on d2. And the same goes for the move rook to b5. I mean, if he goes for rook to b5 instead of rook to a6, then black can do the same with the move bishop to c6. In both cases, black will be better. Okay, so in the actual game, after the move rook to c1, here black made a mistake by playing and now it's better to go for rook d7 so that he can exchange this rook and place this knight on d7, which would be a perfect outpost for this knight. But instead here Gukesh brings his knight to d7, which is a slight inaccuracy because of the following moves. And guys, now you might be shocked that in this position Gukesh sacrificed his rook by knight takes d5. This is because of a simple tactics which he plays. Okay, so after knight to c3, obviously now black cannot capture this h2 pawn due to the threat of knight to e2. And by this, you can see black bishop gets trapped. Will get trapped. So instead, here black can consider multiple moves like king to e7 or so that he can stop these pawns, or black can also push this pawn to h4 so that he can ruin this strong pawn structure of white. But instead here Arjun goes for king to g7, which is a mistake because now white can either push this pawn to h3 or can simply go for the move knight to e2, which he actually played in the game, attacking this bishop. And as I said, black cannot capture this pawn on h2, so that's why here Arjun brings his bishop back to b6. And after that, here Gukesh finds the best move. He brings his knight to e4 so that he can bring his king further to f6 and then to f7. And to stop this, Arjun brings his bishop to g7 to d8 so that this king can't this king can't go to f6 square. And in this position, Arjun Erigaisi resigned because let's suppose if game continues like king to f7, king to h6, king to e6, king takes g6, king takes e5, king takes h5, king to f6, g4, king to g7, but simply king to g5. and king to h7, king to f6, king to h6, g5 check, king to h7, and finally king to f7. And now you can see no one can stop this pawn from promotion. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.